In my previous video, I gave my first impressions on Empulse, a new movement shooter being developed by 1047 Games. And on June 15th, everyone will be able to give it a go during Steam Next Fest. If you are curious and want to know what my first impressions are, then you can check out that video. But at the end of that video, I said I was going to make this one, where I was going to ask the question, does Empulse have an audience, and what does that look like? I'll also be attempting to answer what a successful launch will look like for Empulse later on in this video. Now, reading my comments from my previous video, not a lot of y'all were optimistic about the game for a number of different reasons. 1047 Games has an uphill battle, and it's going to take a while for them to regain ground. However, to answer my first question, yes, Empulse does have an audience. While it's been forever since movement shooters have been popular, we still have at least 2 games that fit that definition. Granted, loosely, but they still exist. Those being Apex Legends and the Finals. I know neither game are true movement shooters if you're comparing them to Quake or Titanfall, but they do have gadgets and abilities that give users more movement options than the typical FPS. I also have to mention, as Empulse is inspired by Titanfall 2, this game isn't exactly for the Titanfall 2 fan. Sure, the movement is there, and you have a grappling hook and some fairly wide maps to play in. When it comes to the mechs though in Empulse, they're not the same as the Titans. These mechs act more like anti-infantry tanks than actual Titans. If you are looking for that connection between you and the mech in having different weapons, abilities, and other features, that's not here. Maybe some point down the line, the mechs will change to be closer to that, but I wouldn't buy into this game right now if that's what you're hoping to get out of it. If you enjoy the movement and the gunplay from Titanfall, you will likely enjoy Empulse as well on that level, and I would recommend trying it out whenever you can. And if you're enjoying the discussion so far, consider supporting this channel and sharing this video around. Even though players can simply stick to Apex Legends and the Finals, I do think Empulse offers at least 2 things that would make players interested and at the very least want to try the game out. One of them is game balance. I know that sounds strange, but allow me to explain. Apex Legends, being a battle royale, can be very aggravating to play if and when certain characters are meta. And sometimes it's just not worth diving into the game at certain points of the day because of the map rotation, or because of the kind of players you keep running into. There may be room there for Apex Legends players to try out Empulse and get a few rounds in every so often. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think any longtime fan of Apex is going to make Empulse their main game, but I do think it's one they can pull up and play at any given time and get that fast-paced gameplay without it being a battle royale. As for how this applies to the Finals, I think game balance is the biggest hurdle that game has. You don't have to look far to see players at different skill levels talking about the game balance, and content creators slowing down their coverage of the game over time. It's also why I stopped playing the Finals as well. I got tired of going against melee loadouts and having to carry the same 2 or 3 gadgets to try and counter that playstyle. Even though I did stop playing before this, I also can't really take the game seriously when they think adding 1 point of damage while lowering the rate of fire of a rifle will actually make any tangible difference to the game. Empulse, on the other hand, can provide a more consistent experience. Sure, they may end up buffing a weapon here or there, and the game becomes a little annoying. It's going to happen with any online game. However, I think the game is in an okay spot right now. That could change once the floodgates are open in a few days. But by comparison, Empulse is going to be easier to balance than the Finals. Now, I don't take Steam charts or Twitch categories to be the end-all be-all like some people do on Twitter or X, but I do think Steam charts can be a good way to see trends and which games players are spending their time on. When looking at the charts for the Finals, they peaked at over 200,000 players. Since then, the game has been holding steady at around 15,000 concurrent players every day. There is a problem though with these numbers. The peak player count was when the game launched back in late 2023, and even though the player count does spike when a new season launches, it tends to hit about 25,000 players, then drops back down. While every game has its hardcore audience that shows up each day, I also don't think the 15,000 concurrent players showing up today are the same ones from 6 months ago or a year ago. While the Finals definitely has a healthy player base that will continue to keep the lights on, it's struggling to grow. I think the players who are leaving and revisiting the Finals may want to try out Empulse. The players who are tired of going against endless melee loadouts. The players who don't want to keep sacrificing the kits they want to use because they have to use gadgets to counter whatever meta the Finals offers at that moment. The players who like the movement abilities. And to a smaller extent, I think that can apply to Apex Legends as well. As for how big that audience is and whether or not they'll give Empulse a shot is a mystery. All 1047 Games can ask for is for people to try out the game. Whether or not they buy into the early access release and or stick around is another problem that would have to be solved over time. Earlier, I mentioned there were 2 things Empulse offers. So what was that second thing? Well, I did mention it here and there in my previous point. The second thing Empulse offers is its movement system. It's a very satisfying system, it's fun and easy to pick up, and you don't need to be spamming buttons or performing animation cancels to make it work. Anyone can pick up the game and get a good grasp for the movement. I know this won't appeal to a more casual crowd because shooting at moving targets are hard, but again, I do think there's a large enough audience that could enjoy this game. Now, as for the more casual audience, what could Empulse do to bring them in? I don't really see any other option than to have some party game modes. Not just the ones that are put together by the community on a map editor, but ones that have their own playlists on the front page. With all the movement this game offers, having a daily or weekly parkour playlist where you have to get from point A to point B may also be a fun activity that anyone can do. The intimidation of a movement shooter is not the movement, it's the moving target. If you create modes that don't really require aiming at moving targets, it could appeal to a larger audience. And it would be a shame to see Empulse fall apart and not find an audience when it has such a great movement system. One thing to make very clear is that Empulse is being released into early access. This isn't going to be a full release, nor is it going to be free to play. It will be a paid product for about $20. I know that will deter players from picking it up. A price tag always does that. However, getting that payment upfront in early access can help fuel development over time. If you don't like how Empulse looks or what modes it offers right now, that could change 6 months from now, and maybe by that time, you'll be willing to buy in. If 1047 Games can continue to refine this game and provides content that makes players want to come back, I can see this game becoming a success over time. But my definition of success may vary from yours. Let's quickly define what I think success for Empulse will look like. Again, looking at Steam charts, the finals is doing just fine with 15,000 concurrent players. Whether it happens on launch or it happens a year later after early access, if Empulse can pull in 10 to 15,000 concurrent players every day, I'd consider that a success. I know the FPS space can seem cluttered and it is very competitive. However, there is still space for players who want an arcade-feeling FPS game. And in my opinion, I also think that the arcade FPS game that encourages movement is also fairly small. Right now, with where Empulse is gameplay-wise, Empulse will be fun to play, and it is a breath of fresh air for me, as I don't have to play a battle royale or deal with wacky metas to play an FPS game that encourages movement. Let me know how you're feeling about Empulse. I have a feeling the comments are going to be more of the same. As for me, I would like to see Empulse succeed and find its player base, and make no mistake, I'm also very cautious when it comes to early access games. There are so many early access games that no one has ever heard of that released and died essentially the same day because it never gained any traction, it was poorly built, it was poorly developed, etc, etc. But here for Empulse, the only reason why I do feel a little more secure, at least when it comes to the gameplay, is because, well, one, I got to play it, and the way that it feels, it doesn't feel incomplete from a gameplay aspect. Sure, the game could be more complex, it could have more weapons, it could have more mechs, more maps, more content, but for what it's offering right now, it is fun to play. And we still don't exactly know how much content is going to be there at early access, and we don't even know if there's going to be a roadmap and what that roadmap looks like. Even though I am very optimistic for this game, I also kind of do want to sit and wait to see just how much content is going to be in the game when they show up at early access and what their plans are from then until release. That's all I gotta say. Thanks for getting this far and watching this video, and don't forget to support the channel and share this video around. Until then, I am Mr. Rain, and I'll see you next time.